Very much. Mr. Perriello, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak. As one of the younger members of Congress, I am one of the few who may actually have to end up paying for the deficits that we are currently running up, and therefore my main concern here is that of fiscal responsibility. And I want to emphasize in that regard the tremendous leadership and effort of the chairman of this committee throughout the past couple of decades to fight for that, and the tremendous personal pain it must have caused to see all of the hard work that went into turning record deficits into record surpluses, only to see in the last 8 years those once again erode into record deficits. We must take very seriously the ideas of balancing this budget and not moving burdens on to future generations, or in my case, future earning years. This is a very, very important issue, and I appreciate the move to get the budget back down to 3% of GDP, and I realize that some economists estimate as much as a $10 trillion hangover in the deficit from the previous administrations. That having been said, we must do more. We must go beyond this to move ourselves towards fiscal sanity. Before I get to that, though, I just want to mention one other positive aspect or encouraging aspect of this budget, and that is its honesty. I think in addition to the irresponsibility of recent years, we have also, in terms of the sheer amount spent and the deficits run up, we've also had an irresponsibility in the lack of honesty in how much we were spending and how large those deficits were. The first step towards recovery in this case is to admit the problem that we have, and clearly in the case of this there are some unprecedented moves towards being upfront and honest about the situation in the budget. Unfortunately, that honesty means that it is a huge wake-up call of a possibility of a $1.7 trillion deficit in the current year. Now, given the $2 trillion contraction in the economy and us as the spender of last resort, there are some necessities at this time. And I think there's some important decisions made here to get us towards fiscal sanity. On the other hand, after 3 or 4 years of that, we start to see an uptick again in the real dollars, even though it continues to be a decrease in real GDP. So one of a few concerns I want to raise. One is, after making the difficult decisions to start to bring the deficit down dramatically within the president's first term, I hope we will continue that pace rather than move in the other direction, both in real dollars as well as percent of GDP. A second concern that I have is, while I respect the honesty of including the possibility of a second or an additional bailout in this budget, I think the case against such a move is tremendous, and in our efforts to balance the budget, rather than doing anything that might make it easier for us to move in the direction of such a bailout, we need to be moving in the opposite direction. There's currently, I believe, a $250 billion contingency, which could translate into about $750 billion in asset purchases based on the track record we've been on. I think it's dangerous to include that, even if the motivation of honesty and planning for contingencies is a good one. I think we've already seen with the way that the first and second TARP were set up that that's a move in a dangerous direction. The final thing is, while there are some very positive moves made in terms of changes in agricultural policies, some that could actually be quite beneficial to the small farmers in my district, we do not see a requisite shift in support for small towns and rural communities that still make up 20% of this country's population, and I believe an even greater percentage of our potential for energy independence. We have farmers ready to go in our area to be part of this, and I think we need to continue to build on the investments in energy independence, with a particular emphasis on the small towns and rural communities that have been left out so much in recent years. So I again commend the chairman for his efforts over the years to move us towards a balanced budget and even a surplus. I hope we will continue in that direction. I believe there is much more that can be done than is in the current proposal to move us towards that fiscal stability.
I thank the gentleman from Virginia, and I can assure you this committee is going to work on that as time goes on, and in this budget as well. The gentlelady now from Ohio, Ms. Sutton, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity